Ever seen a mongoose? You know they look fairly similar, sort of tall and skinny with a pointy nose. Now, I've just thrown them in a load of crickets. They do very much love insects. Here in the zoo, their main diet is crickets, locusts, mealworms, waxworms, lots of tasty treats like that. We also give them fresh fruit and veg, because that's a good source of moisture in their diets, protein pellet supplements, and they're also very partial to hard-boiled eggs. Now, they're not at all fussy eaters, mostly because out in the wild, food is very scarce where they live, so they pretty much had to evolve to be able to eat anything they could find. Now, in the wild, they will even go so far as to eat scorpions. They're actually slightly immune to the venom of scorpions and some poisonous snakes, so it's not as dangerous to them as it is to other animals. And meerkats have a very special way of eating scorpions, so what they will do is catch it live, quickly bite the stinger off of its tail before it has a chance to sting them, and then roll it around in the dirt to get rid of any excess venom on its skin before they eat it. Now, does anyone know where meerkats come from in the wild? No, no one? Well, I can tell you they do come from the south of Africa, and not, despite what car insurance adverts would have you believe, from Russia or Eastern Europe. Now, as I say, they come from places like the Kalahari Desert and Namibia. Now, because this is a very hot, dry, harsh, arid environment for them, they've got lots of special adaptations which help them to live here. So first of all, those lovely big black circles around their eyes, that's basically a natural form of sunglasses for them. So those act just the same way that sunglasses do for you or I. They just absorb the excess glare from the sun and helps them to see a bit better out in the hot desert. They've got nice long claws, which you might be able to see. Those are non-retractable, so they're always out. And they'll use those claws to help them dig around in the dirt for grubs and bugs, and also to climb up to the top of rocks and tree stumps like some of these chaps up here. Now, meerkats actually have the ability to close off their ears. They've got a little flap of skin which they can use to shut their ears off. So when they're digging around in the dirt, they don't get any sand or grit going in there and causing an infection. Now, that's especially important for the babies because they will often stand behind the adults whilst the adults digging around looking for insects in the hope of catching any excess bugs that fly their way. But it means they get sprayed with an awful lot of sand and grit at the same time. So if they can try and prevent any infections, that's always good from their point of view. Now, some people actually refer to meerkats as the solar panels of the desert, and that's because first thing in the morning, they will emerge from their burrows and go and stand with their tummies pointing towards the sun, and try and catch as many of the sun's rays as they can and warm themselves up a bit. Now, additionally, as I mentioned before, they're quite tall and skinny, and this is another important adaptation. If meerkats were much fatter, they'd be too well insulated, and there's a good chance that they'd overheat out in the desert. So by staying thinner, it helps them to keep cool. But it does mean that they need to eat fairly regularly to keep their energy levels up. Additionally, you might be able to see these holes going underground here. This is because they have burrow systems going underground. And that means that out in the desert, they can escape the very hot midday sun. And likewise, at night time, they can go underground to stay a bit warmer. Now, meerkats actually have very interesting social structure. They live in groups of around 10 to 30 individuals. Does anyone know what the collective term is for a group of meerkats? No, there's two possible terms. They're known as a mob or a gang, both of which are quite apt as they are very mischievous little creatures. Now, within a mob or a gang, there's generally just the one dominant female, possibly two or three, and she will be the only one that actually does any breeding. However, the other females will still help out with babysitting duties, so they'll help look after the youngsters so mum has a chance to go off and find some food for herself. Now, the subordinate females can even go so far as to lactate. So even if they've never before been pregnant themselves, they can still produce milk in order to feed the youngsters of the dominant female. Now, that's a really amazing kind